Campbell, thanks very much. Anderson Cooper is going to be joining us in a few moments as well. But let's talk to Senator Lindsey Graham. He's a Republican from South Carolina. He spent a lot of time thinking about Afghanistan, the war in Iraq. Senator Graham, thanks very much. What did you think of the president's new strategy?
Well, there's some consensus and concerns. I think every American is disappointed that 8 years into this thing, we need to send more troops. But that's reality, and I support the president's decision to send 30,000 more troops. I hope it's enough. If General McChrystal says it's enough, that's good by me. I hope the NATO troops that go in will be able to engage the enemy. Numbers matter, but you got to be able to fight. So if we're sending more NATO troops in with the rules of engagement that won't engage the enemy, we're probably defeating our purpose. But I guess the one concern I have is that what does this mean about July 2011? How will the enemy perceive that? How do the Afghan people perceive what we're going to do? It's not realistic that we can withdraw a lot of troops in 18 months if your goal is to train the Afghan army and police force.
Is it your understanding that the withdrawal of the 100,000 or so U.S. troops in Afghanistan would start in July of 2011 and would be complete by Election Day 2012? Is that your understanding?
I don't know, and that's a really good question. I've enjoyed the panel, by the way. This is a thinking, devious enemy. They're going to compute in their strategy what this means. They're going to try to figure out what population centers to attack. They understand we're going into an election cycle, but maybe tomorrow we'll know better. But from listening to the president, I'm uncertain as to what that means we're going to do in 18 months.
Well, why is it okay to have an end game, an exit strategy for Iraq right now? All U.S. combat forces will be out by the end of next August. All U.S. forces will be out by the end of 2011. That's the strategy. That's the timeline for Iraq. Why is it okay to have a timeline for Iraq, yet it's not okay to have a timeline, as I hear you suggest, for Afghanistan?
Well, what we did in Iraq, Wolf, is that we surged troops without any deadline or withdrawal date, and as things got better, we negotiated with the Iraqi government a security agreement that seems to make sense. We're withdrawing troops in Iraq based on conditions on the ground and an agreement we negotiated with a robust government. We did not put conditions on withdrawal the moment we sent the troops. Some of these people are going to meet each other coming and going. 18 months is not a very long period of time. There's a fundamental difference of how we've started the surge in Afghanistan versus Iraq. And my question is, have we undercut our efforts before we start?
What about the overall strategy that the president spoke about to basically defeat al-Qaeda in Afghanistan and Pakistan and to prevent its capacity to threaten America and our allies in the future? What do you think about that basic goal?
Sound, very sound. The goal is to deny the Taliban a safe haven in Afghanistan, but also to put pressure on the other side of the border. I hope the Pakistan government and army will see this as a commitment by the United States to make sure that we hit them on both sides of the border. But time, capacity have to go together. The goal of denying a safe haven to the Taliban and al-Qaeda is the right goal. Fighting on both sides of the border makes sense. You need more troops to be successful in Afghanistan. The one thing I'm concerned about is this idea we're going to begin to leave before we get there. I don't know how that's going to play.
Well, these are, I think, are goals that the president has established, and obviously he can change his mind as he goes forward. Let me read to you one line that really jumped out at me because it reminded me to a certain degree of those mushroom cloud warnings that we heard on the eve of the war in Iraq. And I'll read it to you, and you tell me if you what you think. And the stakes, he says, are even higher within a nuclear-armed Pakistan because we know that al-Qaeda and other extremists seek nuclear weapons, and we have every reason to believe that they would use them. Is that, because that sounds so ominous, that al-Qaeda now is going after nuclear weapons, maybe in Pakistan. Is he exaggerating here, or do you agree with him that this is a realistic threat?
I totally agree with the president that the fate of Pakistan, a nuclear-armed nation, hangs in the balance. And that the government in Pakistan is not very popular, is not very capable, but is in our national security interest to make sure it doesn't fall to extremist groups. The Afghan government is not very capable, is very corrupt, but that's the hand we've been dealt after 9/11. We've become allies with some people who are not very capable, who have problems, but they're better than the alternatives. So the president is not exaggerating the consequences of losing in Pakistan or Afghanistan. Having said that, if you believe what the president does, and I know he believes it, why would you condition this thing before you start? Because the outcome in Afghanistan is tied to Pakistan, and the results could be catastrophic if we fail. The price of success is enormous also, so we should be all in.
A mixed report card from Senator Lindsey Graham to the president's speech tonight. Senator Graham, thanks very much for coming in.
Thank you.
All right, we're going to continue.